And yeah, why don't we, for the remainder here, one or two more maybe? Yeah.
Okay.
How are we doing on time?
Yeah.
Well, I had, not a lot more, but one thing I wanted to present is, you know, with the torban, it's obviously not a folk instrument, right? But because we don't have a lot of records and notes of how they actually played on the instrument, that's not enough of a reason not to make up music. And there's actually a composer in New York, Roman Torovsky, actually a Jewish, Ukrainian, now American composer who writes for the lute. And he really wanted to write for the torban because he knows the instrument existed. I actually found out about the torban by his website. But to actually write your own Baroque, or in this case Renaissance works, you have to know what the kind of works which existed in other cultures, in other parts of Europe. And this past year, I haven't been playing a lot of Ukrainian music, but I have been playing a lot of English Renaissance. And if you can imagine, the Kobzari or the torbanists, they would have had an ideal. Even for me to make this torban, I had to find an English maker, David Van Edwards, who puts all his works into a book or a CD, and how to make the bracelet. And I'm very thankful to him, because now I have a good torban. And are there any John Dowland fans? When I heard there was a harpsichordist and some singers, that I'm sure somebody would be interested. And I love these works, and it's nice. It's something kind of not completely different, but pretty different. These aren't such sad songs. The first one is actually very sad. Melancholy was very popular. The language is similar to Shakespearean, but you can imagine the idea of a composer, a lutenist, a singer and a player. And today we don't have too many singers and players. Usually one person sings, the other person plays, but that's not as fun as being able to do it all yourself. With the help of John, there's actually some moments where there's I need some solo. Usually my wife plays on the bassolia or something similar to the gamba. So today, hopefully John. And these are in
The F sharp one?
the first one is it'll be kind of fragments from these three tunes. The first is in G sharp minor.
Okay.
The second is in F sharp major, and the last one is in C sharp minor.
Okay.
So if you have a capo,
I don't know, we'll see what happens.
I might torban 2.5 step down, which is actually authentic. So, and hopefully if anybody knows these. Are there any Sting fans? Sting actually popularized these tunes, and I listened to them, actually learned them from him. And the idea that on a Ukrainian instrument I can play John Dowland and really excellent tunes was really, really wonderful. And now to be able to perform them. The first one is very sad, but they get lighter. Usually, the Kobzari didn't sing so much about love between a man and a woman, but John Dowland did. The first one isn't about love, it's actually about suicide. But he ends with a Fedynsky third, so there's some kind of love.
Okay, good.
It's a blackbird, a sad infamy sings. There let me live forlorn. Down the vain lights shine, you know more. No nights are dark. but shame disclose. Never may my woes be relieved, since pity is fled, and tears and sighs and groans, my weary days, of all joys have deprived. From the highest spire of contentment, my fortune is thrown, and fear and grief and pain for my deserts, ah, my hopes since hope is gone. Hark, you shadows that in darkness dwell, learn to condemn light. Happy, happy, they that in hell feel not the world's despite. Hark, you shadows that in darkness dwell, learn to condemn light. Happy, happy, they that in hell feel not the world's despite. Come again, sweet love doth now invite, thy graces that refrain to do me to delight, to see, to hear, to touch, to kiss, to die. With thee again in sweetest sympathy, to see, to hear, to touch, to kiss, to die. With thee again in sweetest sympathy. Come again, that I may cease to mourn through thy unkind disdain. For now left and forlorn, I sit, I sigh, I weep, I faint, I die, in deadly pain and endless misery. I sit, I sigh, I weep, I faint, I die, in deadly pain and endless misery. John. Alas, my faith is ever true, yet will she never rue, nor yield me any grace, her eyes of fire, her heart of flint is made. And 'tis no truth may once invade. Her eyes of fire, her heart of flint is made. And 'tis no truth may once invade. Come again. Can she excuse my wrongs with a virtue's cloak? Shall I call her good when she proves unkind? Are those clear fires which vanish into smoke? Must I praise the leaves when no fruit I find? No, where shadows do for glory stand. Thou may be abused, for thy sight be dim. Cold love is like to words written on sand, or to bubbles which on the water swim. Would be thus abused still, see that she will rightly now. If thou canst overcome her, will thy love be thus with the cell? Or will be thus abused still, see that she will rightly now. If thou canst overcome her, will thy love be thus with the cell? Was I so base that I might not aspire unto those high joys which she holds for me? As they are high, so high is my desire. If she this denies, what can granted be? If she will yield to that which reason needs, it is reason to will that love should be just. Ye make me happy still by granting her this, or cut off delays, if that I die must. Better 1,000 times to die than but to leave the steel to mend. Ye but remember it was I who homesick did I contend. Better 1,000 times to die than but to leave the steel to mend. Ye but remember it was I who homesick did I contend.
Wow.
To improvise the English Renaissance.
Wow, that's the. Have you heard these tunes?
I haven't heard that one. I think I've heard some done.
Very nice, very nice.
You guys belong together.
Thank you.
Thank you, John Yuriy,
Thank
for
you.
making a special
Thank you very much,
Saturday
Randy.
afternoon.
Yeah.
This has really been so.
Wait, I have one more.
Okay,
One more.
Is it
I know it's
okay?
getting late.
Yes.
Okay. One more.
Kind of my main tune. My main of the tour really. We tried this yesterday. This is, and it's important for me to show because out of all the clubs art tunes that I do, this is the most important, right? This is the epic tale. And if anybody's heard of Homer as a blind poet, maybe musician, maybe sang some of his poetry. We don't know how he would have sang, but in Ukrainian epic works, we know we have the instruments, the tunes. There's actually some folklorists like Filaret Kolesa of the Shevchenko Scientific Society in Lviv who actually got one of the first Edisons, right, on the wax recording machines. So we have some of these epic tales. In the epic tale I'll play today, it's about 15 minutes, right? Nobody's in a hurry. But you know, it's Saturday, you know. So what is the tune about, right? If you're Ukrainian, you'll know. But even this is the idea of living abroad, right? Leaving your country in America, which is really a nation of immigrants, right? Even the Indians came from somewhere, the Native Americans. The idea is, okay, you leave your country to go to America to make some money, have some freedom, be free of religious persecution, be who you want to be, right? So there's some good reasons to come to America. Like my grandparents fled from Ukraine, fled from Stalin. Like certainly the Vovchuks or the Volks, as I learned, very serious people. They had some very serious ties with getting the culture going. I have some Ukrainian genes in here which don't make sense in America. Maybe they would now, actually. There's lots of work to do here too. And that's why I'm here, right? I'm here in professional work. But in Ukraine, people say, you know, what do you like doing there? What is the source of your happiness in such a really radical, really difficult place to live, and especially living in a village. But the idea is that I'm made for Ukraine, right? And to live there and do this, it's wonderful work and it's necessary work. But the Duma or the epic tale is basically other Ukrainians in the diaspora that had to flee Ukraine. The Cossacks, they're sitting in this Turkish dungeon, right? They lost the war. So they're sitting there for 30 years, there's 750 of them, and they haven't seen the light of day for 30 years. So they'd like to go home, but they can't, right? And on the upper stories of this big palace, we have another Ukrainian, but this time she's a girl, right? She was captured in a raid of some Central Ukrainian village of Bohuslav. Her father's a priest daughter, she's very educated, and she's also, you know, she can't go home. She has to serve in her own way. So she comes downstairs to the Cossacks and says, "Hey guys, do you know what day tomorrow is?" You know, like, you know, how you know that we haven't seen the sunlight in 30 days? What kind of question is that? She said, "No. Tomorrow is Easter Sunday, right? The big holiday when everybody gets together and has, you know, goes to church and celebrates the resurrection, the big feast." And they say, "Oh, you know, that's the news that we did not want to hear. We're sitting here rotting. You're telling about this, you know, this
It's a big feast.
It's a big feast, and we're here, nothing to eat." She says, "No, I have a plan. When the Sultan goes to the mosque, he entrusts me because I'm the most trusted of wives." And we have a historic reference to Roxolana, actually the most powerful Ukrainian woman in world history, probably. And she had the Sultan, I forget which, gave her a lot of authority over the Ottoman Empire and possibly Ukraine. So basically, she does that. She takes the keys, she lets them out, she risks her life. And they actually say Roxolana actually lost, or there was some story that actually she, either Marusa or Roxolana, I think Roxolana, that there was something that actually did happen and she did lose her life. A legend maybe. But basically, that's all very well and nice. So she lets him go home. And she says, go home, right, to the free land where you can be who you want to be, right? And there's this idea of Ukraine, not of this like nation, because we didn't have nationality for hundreds of years. In the Middle Ages we did. We have Kiev and Rus, right? Not Russia, Rus. There's a big difference, right? But afterwards the Mongols came, and then the Russians sacked Kiev, and then a lot of other problems. The Lithuanian Commonwealth was in control, then the Polish Commonwealth, and then so all this stuff happened. But basically, the gist of the story is when the Cossacks say to Marussia, "Well, you're coming with us, right? Let's go home." You know, yeah, we don't have a big nation, but that's the free part of the world. It's between empires, right? Because no one empire can conquer it for long. We kind of can live as Ukrainians with a certain autonomy, right? Certain democracy even. So basically, she says, and this is the kind of the tragedy. She says, "I live in the diaspora, but I like it. Yeah, I have to have a certain compromise. I have to serve this Sultan guy, but only once a month, because he has 30 other wives." She doesn't say that, but she says, "I become accustomed to the luxury of living life in the diaspora." And a lot of people today, now that Ukraine is supposedly a free country, it's not completely free. There's still lots of ties to Big Brother or Big Big Poo Poo. Sorry. Okay. Big Bobo. So and basically the idea is, if you can imagine the Israelites, right, in Egypt, when Moses said, let's go home, he probably would have said, you're crazy. You know, we're living in this super empire. We have these huge pyramids and the modern culture, and you want us to go to the desert? So that's the situation today. And part of my tour is trying to convince Ukrainians, and not just Ukrainians, anybody from America. You've seen the free world. You've lived here, right? Think about what's going on back home, right, in the old country. And in some way, maybe through your ties, you can help. That's kind of my program. A Ukrainian Zionist movement, right? And that's what we proposed, because I make sense in Ukraine. My grandfather would have prayed that somebody from our family would have gone back. Maybe Boris will have a chance. I've almost convinced him, you know, it's the cheapest land, it's the best land. So this is,
He told me about that.
I can find him a house, you know, there's many variants.
How is this soil now?
It's the best and the cheapest. It's black. You know, Ukrainians make a joke, you put a stick in the soil and it grows into a tree.
Wow.
And it's true. It's not a joke. So this is the Duma.
This has been kind of where's the top?
It's in this one. Yeah, they're good. I tune to different keys. Sometimes a half tone up, some half tone down. It's a relative thing.
Що на чорному морі, то на тому камені біленькому, там стояла темниця кам'яна. Там стояла темниця кам'яна, темниці пробувало 700 бідних козаків. Там неволі пробувало ясно світу, ні сонця праведно не побачали. Ей, тоді копранка, Маруся Попівна, Богославко, та все добре давай, до кам'яної темниці пригощай. Ей, до козаків словами промовляє, ей, козаки, він невольників. Чи ви знаєте, що в нашій землі християнській день затепер? То як теє козаки зачували, тоді в кобранку Марусю Мирославку по річах пізнавали. Ей, кайданами запрещали, словами промовляли, сльозами умивали. Ей, дівка бранка, Маруся Попівна, Богославко, о, чому ми знаєм, що в нашій землі християнській день затепер. О, вже ми 30 літ тяжкі турецькі каторзі пробуваєм, та Божу світу і сонця праведного не побачали. Ей, козаки, вибіни невольники, що в нашій землі християнській. Сьогодні Великодня субота, а завтра дасть мій великий праздник рокові Великдень. Ей, то як теє козаки зачували, угору руки піднімали, кайданами запрощали. Дівка, братка, може, прошла год, не кляли, проклинали. Бранка, подай мені ще долі не зазнала, що ти нам в той час всю правду сказала. Ей, козаки, не лайте мене, проклинайте. Ой, як буде завтра пашу турецький вечеті в'їжджати, аж і буде мені ключі на руки здавати, тоді що до вас буду приходжати, вас на волю випущати. Ой, на рокові праздники, аби Христа пашу турецький вечеті в'їжджати, став бігці, братці, Марусі, Мирославці, ключі на руки здавати. Ей, чорі, обранка, добре бає, до кам'яної темниці приходжає, залізні самки одмікає, та усі козаків на волю випущає, і ще й словами промовляє. Козаки, панове молодці, вирушайте на рідні землі, у гордо християнській на ясній зорі, тихі води край, веселі междумір хрещені на Україну. Горде минайте, на гордо Богослава не минайте, отцю ненці вісточку подайте. Та нехай отець ненька великий статків майків не збуває, мене дівка бранка Маруся Мирославку з неволі не викупляє. Бо я вже почурчилась, побусурменилась, для розкоші нещас мої, для лакомства прощаю. Ей, визволь нас, Боже, з тяжкої турецької неволі, на ясній зорі, на тихій воді, у край веселий междумір хрещені, на Україну. Одніми і до віка даруй, Боже, нам многі літа.
Again, to accompany to a Duma. You don't know the chord change, so bravo, John.
Oh,
Very
thank you.
nice.
Thank you, Yuriy. Yeah, thank you for coming in. Thank you, Randy, for hosting us. Yeah, pleasure.